I want you to imagine something for a second. Picture yourself sitting in a dimly lit mud brick room.
Okay, setting the scene.
Yeah. The year is roughly 1775 BCE. You're in a sprawling royal palace in eastern Syria, right on the banks of the Euphrates River, holding a chunk of wet clay.
So you're a scribe.
Exactly, you're a scribe.
Yeah.
And your boss, the king, is just pacing around dictating yet another angry dispatch about a group of rebellious, totally off-the-grid nomads who are driving him absolutely crazy.
Oh man, they're dodging taxes, they're raiding trade routes.
Right, and they just slip away into the desert whenever the army actually shows up.
It is the ultimate administrative nightmare. I mean, you are witnessing this classic clash between the rigid control of an ancient city-state and the untamable freedom of the frontier.
But the crazy part is where this story goes.
Hmm.
Fast forward about 6 centuries, and the descendants of those exact same tax-dodging nomads might just be one of the most famous, fiercely independent tribes in the entire Hebrew Bible.
Which is just a staggering thought. That is a connection bridging hundreds of miles and hundreds of years.
It really is.
It fundamentally changes how we understand ancient history, you know? It pulls the curtain back on how human identity survives.
So, for today's deep dive, we are pulling from a really fascinating academic lecture. It's titled, From Mari to Canaan, How the Binu Yamina Became the Tribe of Benjamin.
A great source.
Yeah. And our mission today is to follow these historical breadcrumbs across the ancient Near East through centuries of climate change and political collapse to answer a massive historical mystery. Like, how exactly does a nomadic Amorite clan transform into a tribe of Israel?
And you really should care about this journey because we aren't just dusting off old pottery here.
Right. It's bigger than that.
It is a masterclass in resilience. It shows how a group of people can evolve, adapt to completely new environments, and ultimately, get written into the texts that shape world history.
Totally. But to understand the biblical tribe, we have to meet them before they were biblical.
We have to go back to Mari.
Exactly. Back to that mud brick room in the ancient metropolis of Mari. And honestly, the way we even know about Mari is a wild story on its own.
It really is.
It was completely lost to time until 1933. There was this French archaeologist named André Perret working in eastern Syria, and a local Bedouin man literally just accidentally unearths a headless stone statue.
And that single chance discovery completely changed ancient Near Eastern studies forever.
Just from tripping over a statue.
Right. So Perret's team follows that statue into the dirt, and they uncover a massive 260-room palace.
Wow.
But the real treasure wasn't gold or jewels or anything like that. It was the paperwork.
The clay tablets?
Yes. They found over 25,000 cuneiform tablets, administrative records, royal dispatches, diplomatic letters, all written in Akkadian.
So it's essentially the internal communication server of King Zimri-Lim.
That's a great way to put it. He was the last king of Mari, ruling from around 1775 to 1761 BCE.
And from those tablets, we get a really crystal clear picture of this society.
We do. Zimri-Lim was ruling over what scholars call a dimorphic society.
Okay, let's unpack this. Dimorphic meaning two forms, right?
Exactly. Think of it as two very different ways of life locked in this tense, uneasy symbiosis.
Yeah.
On one side, you have the palace-based sedentary urbanites, the city dwellers. On the other side, you have these semi-nomadic pastoralist tribes living out on the steppe.
And they meet each other.
They do. The city needed the tribes for livestock and military manpower, and the tribes needed the city for grain and access to markets. But the problem was they deeply, deeply distrusted each other.
Which makes sense. So looking at the politics of these tribes, they were divided into two main confederations. First, you had the Binu Simal.
Right, and King Zimri-Lim was actually from that lineage.
Oh, okay, so they were generally friendly with the crown. But then you have the other guys. The Binu Yamina.
The troublemakers.
The absolute bane of Zimri-Lim's existence. They're essentially these off-the-grid, anti-establishment rebels. I mean, they avoid the census like the plague.
Because a census means taxes and the military draft.
Exactly. They refuse to do forced labor. And when the king tries to pressure them, they just vanish into the vast, ungovernable desert steppe where his heavy royal army just can't follow them.
It is brilliant asymmetrical resistance.
It really is.
But we need to clarify their names here because it is the crucial link to our whole mystery today.
Right, the directional naming.
Yeah. So in the ancient Near Eastern directional system, you always oriented yourself facing east, toward the rising sun.
Okay, so if you're facing east, your left hand is pointing north.
And your right hand is pointing south. So Simal literally means left or north.
And Yamina, which means right, also means south,
Exactly. The Benu Yamina were the sons of the right hand.
which geographically just meant they were the Southern Confederation relative to the northern tribes.
Right. But the royal administration in Mari didn't just see them as, Southerners. The propaganda in these tablets is astounding.
They really hated him, didn't they?
Oh, the city dwellers viewed them as dangerous barbarians.
Yeah.
There's this famous Sumerian literary trope quoted in the sources that describes the Amorite nomad like this, and I'm paraphrasing a bit. He digs up truffles at the foot of the mountain.
Truffles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does not know how to bend the knee. He eats raw meat. He has no house in his lifetime, and he is not buried when he dies.
Wow. So they were essentially viewing them as primitive savages, just running around eating raw meat and digging up mushrooms.
What's fascinating here is that this tells us so much more about the psychological anxieties of the urban elite than it does about the actual nomads.
That makes a lot of sense. It's just classic projection.
Exactly. The city dwellers looked at people who didn't build permanent brick houses and just assumed they were uncultured.
Mm-hmm.
But pastoralism is not primitivism.
No, of course not.
It is a highly sophisticated survival strategy in a harsh, marginal environment. The Binu Yamina actually had a highly complex, decentralized government.
They weren't ruled by a king, right?
No, they were a confederation of 5 distinct sub-tribes. Their authority was completely distributed and situational.
So how did they make decisions?
Well, a chieftain would step up to lead during wartime, but in times of peace, councils of elders handled the day-to-day stuff.
Into a top-down bureaucracy like Mari, where the king controls literally everything, that kind of decentralized freedom has to be terrifying.
Because you simply cannot control it.
Right. But wait, I'm stuck on something here. If they are this terrifying off-the-grid militia that Mari can't even manage, why do they end up leaving?
That's the big question.
Yeah, I mean, they're successfully dodging taxes, digging their truffles, defending their grazing lands along the Euphrates. Did someone finally defeat them? Or, what makes a whole group of people pack up and walk 600 miles to Canaan?
The catalyst for that migration is a catastrophic combination of political collapse and climate change.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the political anchor of their world was completely ripped away in 1761 BCE.
By who?
Hammurabi of Babylon.
Wait, the famous law code Hammurabi.
The very same. He turned on King Zimri-Lim, conquered Mari, and burned the city to the ground. That massive 260-room palace was just buried in rubble.
So without the city, that tense symbiosis you mentioned earlier completely breaks down.
Completely. With the city destroyed, the entire regional order of the Upper Euphrates collapsed.
Because the markets are gone.
Exactly. The centralized markets where the nomads traded their wool and dairy for grain were just gone. The political alliances were void. That delicate balance of power just vanished.
And on top of the political chaos, the environment itself was turning against them.
Right. Yeah, the sources point to growing aridification during this period.
Which for a pastoralist whose entire wealth and survival depends on flocks of sheep and goats, a changing climate isn't just an inconvenience.
It's devastating.
If the steppe dries up, those crucial pasture lands along the rivers shrink. No water means no grass. No grass means dead flocks. It is a literal death sentence. They couldn't just stay put.
And this brings us to what scholars call the Amorite hypothesis.
Right, championed by historians like Abraham Malamud, I believe.
Yes. The hypothesis proposes that the westward migration of the Binu Yamina wasn't some, isolated, panicked retreat.
More organized.
It was part of a massive, centuries-long demographic wave. Amorite groups were moving along well-established kin networks and trade routes.
Where were they going?
They moved from places like up to Haran, which was a major cult center for the moon god Sin.
Oh, and the Benu Yamina are actually recorded making unauthorized alliances there. Wow.
Exactly. And then they followed the natural geographic highway down through the Levantine corridor into Canaan.
So they're following the water, the grass, and the trade routes.
Yeah.
Moving west makes perfect sense mechanically, but they don't just keep wandering forever.
No, they eventually settle.
Right. They end up settling in this very specific region in Canaan known as the Benjamin Plateau. And when you look at the geography of this place, it's like they found a landscape that perfectly matched their old way of life back in Syria.
It really is. The geography of the Benjamin Plateau is incredibly strategic. It's this compact limestone plateau in the Central Highlands, sitting right between Jerusalem to the south and Bethel to the north.
And it's pretty high up, too.
Yeah, elevated about 2,500 to 3,000 feet above sea level, and it's surrounded by steep ravines that make it highly defensible against anyone trying to attack from the lowlands.
It's basically the ultimate highway toll booth.
That is a perfect analogy.
Running right through the middle of this plateau was the Way of the Patriarchs, which was the main north-south highway of ancient Canaan. If you wanted to move goods or armies through the hill country, you had to go through them.
And crucially, their territory extended east, all the way down to the Jordan Valley, controlling the main access passes from Jericho.
So anyone coming from Mesopotamia had to walk right through their front door. It is a massive geographic choke point.
It is essentially a smaller-scale replica of what they dominated back on the Euphrates.
Oh, that's so true.
They controlled the passes, they had the warm Jordan Valley for winter grazing, and the cool highlands for summer grazing. It was the perfect real estate for a pastoralist warrior confederation looking to establish dominance.
Okay, so imagine you're an archaeologist digging up this plateau today, looking at the 12th and 11th centuries BCE, the Iron Age period.
Oh.
You're probably expecting to find typical Canaanite city artifacts.
But you don't.
Right. Instead, you start finding the exact material culture you'd expect from a newly settled pastoral group.
The physical evidence is just striking. You see the sudden appearance of what we call four-room pillared houses.
Which are so cool. Let's explain these.
Well, if you are a nomad who just decided to stop walking, your most valuable possession is still your livestock. So you're going to literally build your house around protecting them.
Makes sense.
These structures allowed a family to live on the upper floor while stabling their valuable animals safely inside on the ground floor.
And there's a bonus to that, right?
Free heating. They utilized the animal's body heat to warm the house during the cold highland winters.
That is brilliant. And you also see these massive collar-rim storage jars everywhere, proving they are starting to farm and store grain, basically settling down for the long haul.
Yeah, the lifestyle is shifting.
You find agricultural terracing built into the hillsides, which, by the way, takes immense physical labor, showing they were making permanent investments in the land.
And famously, there is a distinct absence of pig bones in these highland settlements.
Which contrasts sharply with the lowland Canaanite sites.
Exactly, and it points to an emerging, distinct ethnic identity.
So the archaeological transition is pretty clear, but the cultural and religious transformation, that is staggering.
It's the biggest leap in the whole story.
Because at Mari, the Bedouin were Amorites. They worshiped gods like El, Dagon, and the moon god Sen. They definitely didn't speak biblical Hebrew.
No.
And they had absolutely no memory of an exodus from Egypt. So the crucial question becomes, how does an Amorite clan worshiping the moon god weave its way into becoming an Israelite tribe worshiping Yahweh?
To see how that identity was rewritten, we have to look at the book of Genesis.
Genesis chapter 35 specifically. It gives us the origin story of the tribe, and it is a beautifully tragic scene.
It really is.
Jacob's beloved wife, Rachel, goes into labor while they are traveling near Bethlehem, which, by the way, is right on the southern edge of what would become Benjaminite territory.
Not a coincidence.
Nope. So the birth is agonizing, and as Rachel is dying, she names her newborn son Benoni, which means son of my sorrow.
But Jacob steps in.
He steps in, overrides her dying wish, and renames the boy Benjamin, son of the right hand.
Now, this is what scholars call an etiological narrative.
Basically an origin myth.
Yeah, foundational myth designed backward to explain why things are the way they are. It explains the origin of the name, it anchors the tribe geographically to Rachel's tomb, and it weaves them directly into the patriarchal family tree of Israel.
But look at the mechanism of what Jacob actually did. He rejected a name of weakness and sorrow and insisted on a name denoting martial strength and auspiciousness.
And it is the exact same name carrying the exact same meaning as the Confederation in the cuneiform tablets 1,000 miles east.
The Bible portrays the character of Benjamin in such a strange way, though. It's a massive literary paradox.
How so?
Well, as a person, Benjamin the patriarch barely says a word in the entire book of Genesis. He is completely passive. He just gets carried down to Egypt, used as a pawn by his older brothers. He's arguably the quietest character in the family.
But the tribe of Benjamin.
They are the loudest, most ferociously warlike tribe in the entire narrative.
It's true, the biblical text is just overflowing with their military exploits. In the Song of Deborah, in the book of Judges, they are praised as the first to rally for battle.
They were always ready for a fight.
Always. During the horrific crisis at Gibeah, the other tribes basically wage a civil war against Benjamin, nearly annihilating them. Yet the tribe's internal solidarity allows them to survive.
And Israel's very first king, Saul, was a Benjaminite.
Even centuries later in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul proudly brags about his lineage, stating he is from the tribe of Benjamin.
But here's where it gets really interesting. They are literally named the sons of the right hand, but they are most famous in the Bible for being left-handed assassins and snipers.
The irony is amazing.
You have Ehud, the left-handed judge, who sneaks a dagger into the chambers of the Moabite king, Eglon.
And in the book of Judges, the tribe deploys an elite unit of 700 left-handed slingers.
Who, the text says, could sling a stone at a hair and not miss. So how does a tribe named for the right hand become legendary for their left hands?
Well, that paradox highlights that the name was always an ancient group identifier, a directional marker, not a literal description of their physical traits.
Right.
And understanding that collective identity is the key. Remember how the Binu Yamina at Mari functioned?
It's a confederation.
Exactly. They weren't famous for a single heroic founder or a great king. They were a modular plug-and-play alliance system, a confederation of 5 named sub-tribes acting together in war.
And the biblical tribe of Benjamin is structurally identical.
They are. They aren't defined by the quiet patriarch. They are defined as a collective of named clans known for fierce tribal solidarity and decentralized military action. They inherited the social character of the Euphrates nomads perfectly.
Okay, I have to play the skeptic for a minute here because this all sounds a little too perfect.
I know, it almost sounds like a movie script.
Right. It's like finding a 3,000-year-old game of telephone where the final word perfectly matches the original whisper. The Mari texts are from 1775 BCE, but the archaeological settlement in the Benjamin Plateau really kicks off around 1200 BCE.
Which is a huge gap.
That is a 500 to 600-year gap. Sure, oral tradition is strong, but 600 years. That's like someone today flawlessly remembering a family feud from the year 1400 without ever writing it down. How is linking them actually possible, rather than just academic wishful thinking?
It is the most serious subjection in the field, and scholars debate it endlessly. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to deeply rethink how ancient pastoral societies operated. Meaning, migration wasn't a long weekend road trip. It was a multi-generational drift. A group would move, settle for a few decades, fragment, regroup, and slowly push westward over centuries.
Oh, okay.
And while 600 years seems impossible to us without a written record, pastoralist societies don't use oral history just to tell stories around a campfire. Genealogy and kinship are the very foundation of their legal and social structure.
Because it's how they claim their land.
Exactly. Memorizing your lineage is your deed to your grazing land. It is your military alliance contract. Modern Bedouin tribes demonstrate this perfectly. Their oral traditions preserve group identities, clan names, and allegiances for centuries, precisely because their survival depends on knowing exactly who is in their confederation.
Still, there are minimalist scholars who argue that this is all just a giant linguistic coincidence.
Yes, the minimalist approach.
Their argument is basically, look, right, just means south in Semitic languages. Any group of people living south of another group might end up being called sons of the south.
Right, it's just a common name.
Yeah. And they argue the biblical writers made up the patriarchal stories way later, so we shouldn't use them as history at all.
And we absolutely have to respect that minimalist caution. I mean, reading the Bible as a modern historical textbook is a mistake.
Definitely.
However, the just a coincidence theory starts to break down when you look at the mechanics of the evidence. It is not just the name in isolation.
It's a whole package.
Right. It is the remarkable convergence of multiple specific data points. You have the exact same directional name. You have the exact same decentralized segmentary social structure of subtribes led by elders.
On the geography.
Yes, you have an established geographic migration trajectory from the Euphrates past Haran down to Canaan, and you have the exact same behavioral profile, fiercely independent, warlike, and resistant to central authority.
Any one of those could easily be a coincidence, but all of them together? That demands a structural historical explanation. So what does this all mean for us? Let's just take a step back and look at the epic scale of this journey. A frustrated scribe sitting in a mud brick room in 1775 BCE carved an angry complaint into a piece of wet clay about some ungovernable nomads who refused to pay taxes.
Poor guy had no idea.
He was completely unaware that 3.5 millennia later, archaeologists would dig up his ancient dispatches, and we would be reading his administrative headaches to uncover the origins of a biblical tribe.
It's mind-blowing.
It really reminds you that ancient texts are deeply, fundamentally interconnected. History isn't just a list of things that happened. It's a living memory, often just waiting in the dirt to be read again.
And this raises an incredibly important question for us today. The identity of the Binu Yamina was forged in the crucible of political collapse and climate-driven migration.
Because the aridification of the steppe forced them out.
Right, out of their ancestral grazing lands to seek a new home. So as we sit here today, facing our own era of shifting climates, changing environments, and massive displaced populations, it leaves you with a staggering thought.
What's that?
What new group identities are being formed out there today, right now in the margins, that will evolve, endure, and become the legendary tribes and nations of the year 5000?
Wow. Next time you feel the urge to complain about your taxes, just remember, your administrative headaches might be the start of a very, very long story.